Well, you know, many of Wisconsin's biggest conservative radio talk show hosts in the state have been vocal against Donald Trump, much more harsh than some national radio hosts. Well, now a major state newspaper can be added to that list. The editorial board of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel publishing this editorial, quote, "With Donald Trump in this race, we had to take a stand." It goes on to read in part, "At one time, the editorial board made recommendations in all major races and many lesser ones. No more. But the Trump candidacy made it necessary for us to comment in the Republican primary. We said no to Trump, the most divisive and ill-suited person to run for president in our lifetimes. We said yes to John Kasich, the Ohio governor, who is the only Republican left in the field who has a chance to actually govern." I'm joined by David Haynes. He's the editorial page editor for the newspaper, the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, who is in Milwaukee. David, welcome. Why'd you guys write this?
Well, Eric, I think we felt very strongly. We actually did a 1-2 punch. We did an editorial last week explaining why we thought Donald Trump was unfit for office, and then we did a second editorial explaining our views on John Kasich. But with Donald Trump, it's really a couple of things. Most of all, he's very thin on the issues. He's given the issues that matter to this state only a passing glance. Furthermore, he's been divisive. He's been all about building walls, to wall out immigrants at the southern border, to wall out Muslims, and more important for our state, to wall off our economy from the global economy. The punitive tariffs would be devastating to some of our industries and cost jobs.
Let me read some of the editorial you just mentioned, which is entitled, "By Any Measure, Donald Trump is Unfit to be President." You wrote last week, quote, "Trump's crudity and spinning moral compass are merely the most obvious problems with his candidacy. His policy ideas, such as they can be divine, show a man with no political center who has given the hardest problems facing the nation no more than a passing glance. We can't tell what is at the core of Trump's belief. Perhaps beneath the persona of @real Donald Trump, there is a real person and not a cartoon character. Perhaps." Ouch. Yeah, I mean, David, you know what his supporters are going to say. You're just part of the lamestream media. You know, you're part of the establishment. You hate Trump. Yeah. And 34% of the voters, according to polls in your state, support him. So what do you say to them?
Well, there's no question about it. And I've heard from some of those voters. I've heard from them repeatedly, even before we wrote the editorial.
What do they say?
But what they say is, and I've been to 3 Donald Trump rallies, 1 in Iowa, 2 here in Wisconsin. And I have to say, I think Trump supporters have been mischaracterized by some of the people who have done some very bad things at his rallies. In fact, most of the people who support Donald Trump are good, working class, hardworking people who think that the government just needs to be shaken up. Our take on it is that may be true, but Donald Trump isn't the right messenger. He hasn't thought about the issues. He's divisive. He's, in fact, boorish in some ways in the way that he's treated women and minorities. And so we feel your pain, but we think that there are other better alternatives.
Yeah, maybe throwing tomatoes at the TV screen right now. Let me talk about...
well, they might be.
What you said about John Kasich, or wrote about the governor.
Sure.
In your endorsement of the governor last week, you said, quote, "Kasich appears to be the only Republican left in the race who actually could govern if he does win. Trump is Trump, vicious, unqualified, and dangerously ignorant of foreign affairs." There you go again, slamming Trump. But you say Cruz is brilliant, but unable to escape the twin straitjackets of ideology and ambition. Why Kasich, and what do you think will happen tonight?
Yeah. We think John Kasich is a reliable conservative. It is really hard to argue he's not a conservative if you're a Republican voter. He's pro-gun. He's pro-life. He believes in free trade. He's tough on foreign policy, way tougher than President Obama has been. But what we also liked about John Kasich is he has 18 years experience in Congress. He has 2 terms as governor of Ohio, very successful there. And he's shown a willingness to work with the other side on occasion. And our view, at least, is that that's how you govern. So that's our point about governing. Tonight, right now, if you believe the average of the polls, Ted Cruz is up by 4 to 5 percentage points. He was up by as much as 10. I think it's tighter than that. I actually think Cruz likely will get a win tonight. But you have to understand, too, Wisconsin was always going to be a harder state for Trump than maybe it looked like. We're a little better educated than average. We tend to go to church a little more often, and we tend to get married and stay married. And those kind of demographics haven't been good for Trump in other places.
All right, yeah, David, sorry we're out of time, but we appreciate it, and you have certainly added to this conversation. David Haynes of the Milwaukee Sentinel Journal. Take care.
Thanks very much, Eric.
Of course.